So today I had two encounters that got me thinking about continuing my work with apologetics for middle school students. And I'm going to share those things with you briefly. If you know anybody who believes that the universe, as complex as it is, has any explanation outside of a mind and a designer that could have created it, I want to encourage you to pass this video on to them and just to get them to think about some of what I'm going to share. So as far as we know, the universe right now, or the world, let's start with the world we live in. We live in a very complex world, right? There's many galaxies and all of that. But what I'm trying to say is we live right now on planet Earth and have the opportunity to explore this planet to explore this universe from our standpoint. And Jay Richards and I believe Dr. Guillermo have written a book about The Privileged Planet. The 20th anniversary edition is coming out this fall. So if you haven't heard about The Privileged Planet, check out The Privileged Planet by Dr. Jay Richards. But what is interesting is that we are in a place where we can study the universe, right? And this afternoon, I had two questions. One from people that would be about 10 years old and one from people that would be about 11 or 12. And it had to do with this question of, just God and the universe, right? Amazing conversation. I try to encourage the young people to think about, math and science and the universe. And I threw in some Einstein discussions that blew their mind. But the point, though, is how do you explain the universe? So I want to explain something very critical here. I believe that God created the heavens and the earth. I believe that God is the only one who has the different sort of, think of it like a resume. He has the requirements. He is the one who can create this universe out of nothing. And he himself is not a part of the universe that he has made, right? So he's outside of time, space, and matter. And he created the universe that we're in. He created the world. If you don't believe God made the world, I think there's a certain posture you should hold. And I'll explain what I mean. As far as you and I know, there is nothing that creates complex designed systems with information apart from a mind and a design. Like the mind and design are involved in creating complex systems. So if you believe this universe is complex and has evidence of, sophistication, precision, specificity, fine-tuning, then the question becomes, what is the reason for that? The Christians would say God created the heavens and the earth, and we could talk more about that theology. I want to encourage you to check out the book, The Return of the God Hypothesis 2 by Dr. Stephen Meyer. And then Richard Swinburne, Is There a God? Richard Swinburne is a wonderful philosopher. You could check out those resources. But if you don't believe that God made the world, here's what I'm trying to say. That means that you're believing in a possibility of some mechanism that could have created us, including our mental intellect and everything we have. You're using an example that we've never seen before. And therefore, maybe the posture then is almost of this certain form of humility of, I've never seen this happen before, but I believe it, and you're believing it by faith. But that's the very thing that Christians sometimes are accused of having as a way to sort of bring, you say it's faith and you don't have an explanation. No, we say the explanation is that God made the world, but we can study the world that God has made. I don't know if you know this random fact, but of the three greatest physicists that have ever lived, Einstein, Newton, and Maxwell, 2 out of 3 of them had no problem talking about faith in conversations. About faith, about the fact that the world is created, or that one of them, Scottish Presbyterian, Maxwell, and then Newton, of course, was very known to famously talk about God in his book, The Principia, and he wasn't opposed to believing in God. You can look at some of the people that tutored Newton and the people that tutored them and the people at Cambridge that had no issues with faith and God and science. No problem there. And I'm not saying Einstein, Einstein's views on that are in a different category, I would say, and we could talk about that in a separate video. But what I'm trying to say is some of the foundations, and even the people of mathematics, Euler, and we could go on and on. These people had no problem with believing in God and doing science or doing mathematics. But the reason why I bring all this up is there's this attitude some people have in society today that says, if you're a scientist, if you really know the science, you wouldn't say you wouldn't want to bring God into the equation or the discussion. But the thing is, this universe that we're talking about needs an explanation for its sophistication. It needs an explanation for its precision, for its fine-tuning. What is your explanation for it? And this is not a God of the gaps argument. You have to go back to a point at which the thing or the person doesn't need an explanation beyond their existence. And that's what we find with God. God is the creator of the heavens and the earth. And so I told these young people that, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Because we believe that God made the world, we can study the world that God has made. We're not going to step back and not do it. We're going to study the world, but we're doing it from a place of another kind of humility, a humility that is centered around a recognition of the creator of the heavens and the earth, giving us the opportunity to study the world that he has made, like Kepler would say, like people like Galileo and Copernicus would say. And so I want to encourage you to really take time and think about what is the origin of the universe, what is the meaning of life, and if God created the world, how now should I live? And let's be okay talking about that in science and math class. This is one of the modules I'm going to integrate into my science and faith curriculum. We really need to talk about God in the discussion where the opportunity comes, and not block off and say, no, you can't bring God in. There's something called methodological naturalism, which is part of what is running our science enterprise in America, especially, and Western Europe today. And just in Europe. But this idea that when you can't bring God into the discussion, but you know what? I think we will have way more fruitful scientists and more STEM excellence as a big picture when we can have scientists, mathematicians, and thinkers who also know the history and philosophy of science, logic, and theology. That was what was unique with Maxwell and Newton. They both had that in common. They both studied philosophy. They knew philosophy and they knew science. If you bring science, philosophy, and theology into the discussion, you make a new type of scientist, a unique type of scientist that is able to engage with difficult questions, that is able to embrace a certain form of humility that needs to be embraced. I think Maxwell and Newton have that in common. Maxwell, Newton, and Euler. Newton and Euler are Maxwell and Euler are my favorite scientists, math people, but Newton happens to also be one of the best, and I'm going to agree. Of course, he's the best in his category. So, anyways, some things for you to chew on. Let us acknowledge the origin of the universe coming. Let's give that a basis of, like, the Bible has a say in this issue, and let's not just say, well, science says that we don't need an explanation of such and such. Well, what is the explanation you have, and what's the evidence you have for the explanation you have, and what posture do you have while having that explanation that you can't use to explain anything else? You're having a certain kind of faith. We all have faith. What is your faith? Anyways, we can talk more about this later. Can Science Explain Everything? That's the name of the book I want to encourage people to check out. Can Science Explain Everything by Dr. John Lennox. There's a video documentary coming out on that as well. You can find it on their website, or email me at amosthemathguy@gmail.com if you want me to share that video with you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more. Take care, and we're going to continue talking about science, faith, theology, philosophy, how it all comes together as I work on releasing segments of my curriculum called STEM Excellence. Take care and have a blessed day.